everybody's got a beautiful mission statement. Pull up any university and read their mission statement. Sounds wonderful. Great. But are you doing it? Are you really trying? And so when I started looking for presidency, this was the number one thing. And if I found a crack of any kind, I just tossed them in the no pile.
Higher education is under unprecedented pressure: financial, cultural, competitive. These forces are pushing universities to act like factories, filling seats, chasing numbers, surviving another year. But exceptional leaders refuse to accept this as the only path forward. They're building community in their own unique ways, creating places where students feel seen, known, and inspired to belong. Their stories can light the way for others navigating this transformation. These are the architects of belonging.
We call this the LinkedIn intro, just to get to know you a little bit better. We know you've been the president at Misericordia you're about 5 years now, or I don't know if you've coming up on your 5 year mark. Okay, you're in your 5th year. You are an expert. You're a scholar specifically around social movements, collective behavior. You've published many books, many articles. You have been this lifer in higher education, starting with teaching at Notre Dame, where you received one of their highest awards for teaching in the College of Arts there. With all of that in perspective, we want to hear a little bit about who Dan is, though, outside of those accolades. So give us a little sneak. Jim gave us a little sneak peek, but we want to hear it from the source.
I can only imagine what he might have told you. But actually, I mean,
all good things, by the way. Yeah.
If you want to attach this to belongingness, I can go back further actually than Notre Dame, because I was an undergraduate student at Ohio State, a gigantic university. And my first year as an undergraduate student, I struggled. I did not feel a sense of belonging, and I felt very isolated in many ways, even though, you're in a crowd of 50,000 students, right? You still feel isolated, and there's reasons for that. And it actually can be easier sometimes to fall into that when you're in a big environment. But I ended up getting involved in some things in my second year and so on, and changed the experience for me. I ended up having a fantastic experience at Ohio State. I became a resident advisor, which was a very pivotal for me. I mean, that becomes your business, right? Belonging becomes your business when you're a RA. And I loved that work, and I could really see the impact from the RAs that I had. I had a not great RA my first year who was just picking up his free room and board and not doing anything. And then I had this fantastic RA my second year who was really interested in involving people with each other and getting people to, attend activities and things. And just, he was just a great guy. And I was like, wow, this can make such a difference. And I wanted to do that for other students when I was a junior and senior. I was like, if I could just stop one kid from having that experience I had the first year, I've been successful, So I had that sort of bone in my body about wanting to do that kind of thing. Through being an RA, I discovered that you could have a career in student affairs, and you could, work in residence halls as a real job. And so I got a master's degree in student affairs. And so now I'm really in the cult, I guess, of belonging, of student affairs, student life, and then I worked a couple of years at Ohio State as a hall director. I absolutely loved it. And so, that was that. And I carried that experience with me into, I went back to grad school, got my PhD and everything, and became a faculty member. But I've always remembered and valued that part of my experience of working in student affairs with student life and doing that kind of work. And it's been a big part of how I did my work as a faculty member and as an administrator as I've gone on in my career, and still today, I think about it every day, and it's a big, big part of how we do our work at Misericordia. And I think, I took your little test, and did pretty well because I'm talking about the environment I'm in, and it's a place that cares deeply about belonging and works extremely hard at it. And so I do all these, some of the things Jim may have told you. I mean, I do them partially because I like them, but I also do them because they produce connection with other people. And one of them is my rock band. I've been in the same rock band since I was in eighth grade. Same guys, same four guys. And we're still playing together. And, we're not great or anything, but it's a lot of fun. And we play here on campus. And, it humanizes you as a president. You're not so far away. You're out there cranking on your guitar, and it's fun. And people see a different side of you. And I do a lot of stuff on social media. I got this ad agency decided I was the number one social media president in the United States and Canada a couple years ago, and and that is nice in terms of recruiting and getting the name of the university out, but it's also a connection mechanism. And for our students here, they see me doing some goofy thing on TikTok, and it's almost all goofy stuff on TikTok. And then they feel comfortable coming up and talking to me about, oh, I saw you do that TikTok thing. That was hilarious. And she started a conversation. Whereas a lot of times people think of the president, up there somewhere. And they feel too far away, and they're intimidated to talk to you or to engage with you. But this is just one way of many of kind of breaking some of that stuff down and allowing us to be real people to one another, and it makes a huge difference. And if it makes them feel more comfortable and better able to do it the way you described your own experience, better able to do all the other things, all face the challenges in their life because they feel grounded in a community that feels supportive to them. All right, we did something great. We really did something that mattered. So
Yeah. Oh, love that. One thing Jim had told us, he was like, Dan is a slightly self-deprecating man who runs a 5K every day.
oh,
So
yes, yes,
tell us,
yes.
and that's been a streak that's been going on for
Yes,
years now.
I've run a 5K or more, 3.1 miles for those of you out there who don't do the metric system. It's 3.1 miles, and I've done at least that. That's the minimum every day for over 14 years now. I haven't missed a day. So, and that has come with many trials and tribulations. I will tell you, trying to keep that going every single day. It's tough. I broke my toe twice during the streak. I got hit by a car. I've had to, like run in the airport because I was trapped on a flight delay or something. I've had all kinds of stories come when you do this, but yeah, it'll be 15 years next January that I've been doing this. And so some of the students starting at the university, they were in kindergarten when I started this running
Yeah,
streak. But yeah,
that's
it's another one of those fun things that, I mean, it's good for me, but it also is it's one of the greatest conversation starters you can imagine. So
yeah. That's wild. You got hit by a car and you broke you broke some toes. That's crazy. So
yeah,
that's dedication though. So keep it
yeah, you
going.
figure out how to keep going. Now it's I mean, it's got to be something worse than that to stop me, right? So so the streak will probably go on for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, and I know you started mentioning it, but we would like to transition to just talking about your why. And it sounds like you know a lot of the experiences you had, uh, especially at Ohio State, were transformative for you as a leader, as a person, just moving forward to join the cult, as you mentioned it. But yeah, would love to know, like, as we zoom out, colleges are closing, belief in higher ed is being questioned. What keeps you personally invested right now? What's your why? What's Dan Myers's? Why are you in this?
I mean, I was gonna say I believe, but it's not a belief. It's something I have observed, and there's plenty of evidence that higher education is a transformative experience. And sometimes things get tough, and you get dragged down by the bad behavior of a few people at other institutions and things. But the reality is, it is transformative, and it's transformative in terms of your potential to fulfill the things that you can do in life. It's transformative in terms of your income, if that's important to you as a marker in your life. It's transformative in terms of your ability to be a good citizen and to participate in our society and in whatever company or employment situation you're in a positive, productive way, it's transformative, and the list goes on. And I see that every day with our students and in my own life and my kids and everybody. I've seen this, and so I am dedicated to trying to produce that for people in the best possible way, and for the most people that I can. When there are big challenges in higher education right now, and a lot of it's just driven by the demographics of the world, of the United States in particular. The number of 18-year-olds coming out of high school that are going to college is dropping, and that produces all kinds of challenges and spin-off kinds of things. And one of the things that happens is that people try to figure out a way to do it cheaper for a bigger number of people, so they can keep enough revenue coming in to do their work, and that's okay. And obviously, there's been some places been successful, at least successful financially, in doing that. But that's not what our orientation is at a place like Misericordia. And there's a lot of schools like us. We're not unique in this, but we believe in the thick, connected experience that students have on campus. And we're not saying it's for everybody. We never say that, but it can be extremely important for a lot of people, and it really can make a difference in their lives. And so our answer to everybody's going online and taking classes from their bedroom at home or whatever, and they're never stepping foot on a campus. Okay, I mean, that has its purpose in certain circumstances. It's the right thing for some people at certain time. But we've doubled down on the thick experience of being on a campus with faculty and staff who are really involved in your life and really get to know you, really and the other students that are around you that really get to know you and become your lifelong friends and supporters, and can change your life in so many ways, not just while you're at college, but those connections go on forever. And we think that's an incredibly powerful experience. And so our goal here is not to become some gigantic school. It's to do what we're doing extremely well, and to really build that connection in that thick way that can have a stronger impact on the individual student than if they're just taking a class online. And I don't mean to derogate that. I think there's good reason to do that for a lot of people in certain and many circumstances, but there's also a great place for this kind of education as well.
Yeah. Dan, we had read, you had written something about back 5 years or 5, 6 years ago when you were looking for your next role in higher education, how you were very quite particular about the school that you wanted to work for and lead for, and how Misericordia was kind of on a short list of schools that they weren't just talking the talk, they were also walking the walk of actually being quite mission driven. Like, to go back into that time, it seems like there was probably a pretty big connection there on the why for you, like actually being quite meaningful about the work that you wanted to do. Could you just tell us a little bit about that story and, what it was about Misericordia that you
Sure.
were so attracted to?
Yeah, be happy to. I've worked at a number of different universities and in different organizations inside those universities, and their commitment to mission varied a lot. I mean, some were just living it as much as they possibly could and really dedicated themselves to it, and others it was just window dressing. It was something that they ran out that sounded nice, and but they weren't really doing it when you got right down to it. In fact, they were doing things that completely were at odds or contradicted the mission, and they didn't care, as that. And I didn't want to be part of that anymore. Had it up to here with that. And so I really wanted to find a place that was, not perfectly living its mission. Nobody can, but was really trying. It was a big part of what they did. Everybody's got a beautiful mission statement. Pull up any university and read their mission statement. Sounds wonderful. Great. But are you doing it? Are you really trying? And so when I started looking for presidency, this was the number one thing. And I looked at their mission statement and I started digging around and seeing what I could find out about them. And if I found a crack of any kind, I just tossed them in the no pile. Because if I could find a crack at that level when I'm not there or anything yet, you can bet there's a bigger problem, And so I just cast them aside. And it so happened that just, the happenstance of what was available that year and this element, that the ones that were left were almost all Catholic schools. I wouldn't have guessed that when starting off, but they were. And it just turns out that Catholic schools, not every single one, I don't want to, paint anything with too broad of a brush, but they've held on to their identity around mission stronger than other schools. I mean, most private schools have a religious history back there somewhere. They were founded in some religious tradition, but most of them have gotten away from it over time. But the Catholic schools have held on to it more for some reason, and that's turned into this living mission in a way that a lot of schools don't have. That doesn't mean if you're not Catholic, you don't have a mission, and there's some great ones out there. Don't get me wrong, but that's just the way it turned out. And among them, there was Misericordia, who I already had discovered had this great record of getting students through to graduation. If you control for the privilege factors of the student body, their kind of background, wealth kind of things, it's got the second best graduation retention rate in the entire country. We graduate 20, our graduation rate is 21 points higher than it ought to be on the basis of the demographics of our student. That's an outrageously good record. Okay. And so I knew that already. I said, aha, there's something right there, that they're doing something different, Um, and when I went on, did the interviews, you talk to all kinds of people when you go through these presidential interviews. And I probably drove people crazy because I was saying to everybody, I'm like, okay, you've got this wonderful mission. It sounds terrific. Tell me how you experience that in your day-to-day work. If you're a staff member or a faculty member, if you're a student, how do you live that, or how do you experience that in your day-to-day life as a student at Misericordia? And when you ask for a concrete story, you can kind of get down to reality. Okay. And if people have good stories on that, convincing, concrete stories, and everybody had one at Misericordia. There was not a single person I asked that question to that didn't have a darn good answer to it. And I thought, okay, now we're talking. Okay, these people are trying to do this. They really are committed to it. And so then, I went through the rest of the process, and it was great. Marriage made in heaven. And since I've been here, I've discovered it's even stronger than I perceived when I was going through the interview process. People really do care about that, and they work on it, and it motivates everything we do. If you go out on the quad and grab any random student, and I'm waiting for, I always say this to people. I haven't had somebody do it yet, but I'm waiting. Go out there, just grab any student and ask them what the mission of Misericordia is. And I am telling you, if you ask people at most universities, they won't have a clue what the mission is, what the mission statement is, other than to be a good university or something. But here they will tell you. They will tell you the charisms that drive this place. They'll tell you about how we try to live it and what they're doing in their lives, in their service work, in their coursework, whatever their future plans for their profession. They'll tell you how they're planning to continue living that mission. It's unbelievable that that could happen, and it's a feeling and a sense here of a community that is buying into that same thing. It's really powerful. Oh,
Wow.
long answer. Sorry.
No. It was great, actually. Good insight, especially into how you were making that decision at the time. And yeah, I mean, Tim and I are the kinds of people that would go to a campus and ask those people, those questions, how the mission looks, or we usually ask people, what makes you feel like you belong on a campus, and some great stories have come out. So I'm sure one day we'll come to Misericordia and then ask people there.
You're more than
And
welcome.
if
I'd love to have you.
cool. If we move to the present day, then from where you are now, you've made the decision with the match made in heaven with where you are, and looking outside more to the landscape of higher education. I mean, we talk a lot about this idea that higher education is under immense pressure, competitively, culturally, demographically. When you look at the landscape of higher education, as a president that is in an institution that is so grounded in community, what are you seeing? Like what are you seeing in the higher education landscape from your point of view?
Yeah, well, it is a tough time, as we've mentioned a couple times already, and some of that is driven by demographics, and it's making it hard, and people are grasping at various fads, I will say, to try to salvage themselves, and it's totally understandable that people are doing that, and I don't blame anyone for trying these things, um, because we're watching a lot of schools go under, you know? I mean, in the time I've been at Misericordia, in our category, which I would call nonprofit, private, less than 5,000 students. Okay, that would be our category. There have been 70 schools that have closed in not even 5 years, 70, and there's gonna be more before this year's out. You know, yeah, I can see it on the horizon with a couple of reports of financial problems at various schools. And so people are desperate and they try things that, I think, and many times are harmful to this kind of connecting people into a community because that's a thick experience. But here's one way that people might think about putting that challenge together with a good response that thickens their community and improves this student experience. And that's to think about retention, not just about recruiting students to your school, but keeping them there through graduation, right? And obviously, I think anybody could do the math in 2 seconds that students who stay for 4 years pay a lot more tuition than students who stay for 1 or 2 years, right? And so it redounds to the financial bottom line of the university to hold on to students better. And how do we do that? Well, we attach them to belongingness sub-communities at our school and to our larger community in ways that not only hold them in because they feel like they're part of something, but it also supports their efforts in ways that prevent other kinds of problems, right? And so, they need to succeed at academics, they might need to succeed at their sport or whatever to be retained. And if they're tightly connected in with groups of other students and faculty and staff who are going to help them do those things well, or notice when something's getting a little off track and do something about it before it becomes a big problem, then you've put them together, right? They're going to stay, and that's going to redound to the bottom line and to the reputation of the university, which in the end is going to help you recruit more students. And so there's a positive virtuous cycle in this kind of stuff too. If you can get it rolling in the right direction, it starts to build on itself in a really positive way. And so
Mm.
that's one way of kind of, looking at this challenging terrain that's in front of us and saying, how might we navigate this? Well, one way is through this kind of thinking about what the student experience is really about. You know,
Mhm.
I think one of the reasons we're so successful recruiting here, and I'll just say, just for the record, anybody listening out there, we have had enrollment increases and 5 years in a row, and we are almost up to a record enrollment at this university. There's only 1 year that beat us, last year, which is the year that football started. The year they started the
Mm.
football team, which was, I would say, was it 15 years ago, maybe something like that. And, and the entire football team, 120 players were in the first year class. So that class kind of had a
Okay.
spike in it. Uh, but, but other than that, we've had the highest enrollment we've had for a couple years running now. And we're going to get close to that football record this year. So, and why is
Okay.
that? Because we have helped people understand that there's a student success culture here. There's a student connection culture at Misericordia that they want. Right. And so as you build this thing and you get people to understand what the experience is actually like, then they want to come too, right? It's easier to land them and your yield rate goes up and your applicants. And we have a record number of applicants this year. We've never had this many in the history of the university. In 5 years, we've more than 50% increase in our applications to Misericordia. So now we're able to be more selective as well. And so it's really, and we haven't
Mhm.
done any of the things that might be seen as panic button things. We've tried to focus hard on building good, solid things that are really going to make a difference. They're going to be an incremental step up and they're going to be hard to give back. And that kind of experience that we're talking about here is one very, very important part of that.
Mm. It seems like there's a huge core component that you're placing within retention, and how poor retention can actually be one of these really big underlying issues for colleges that are in trouble. It seems like there's also a bit of a through line there with what you were saying earlier about the student experience. How does the student experience impact retention? How do universities, what you were saying before, universities that really aren't living up to their mission, how does that impact the student experience? Um, I'm probably not saying this statistic 100% correct, but there's they say like what, over 30 or 40% of first year college attendees end up not finishing their degree, which then kind of becomes that starts to really drive and fester this pressure and reckoning of higher education as well. So maybe the question to you is, do you feel like higher ed in any way has lost its way to deserve this situation or this reckoning that it's in? Do you feel like it is a fair challenge from society and from, maybe aspiring students to challenge higher ed?
Well, yes and no. Is good answer to everything, I suppose. But I mean, those retention rates, you're right, about 40% of students who start pursuing a degree in higher education don't finish in 6 years' time. Now, some of them end up finishing later and things like that. And, but, and about 20% of students who start somewhere finish their degree somewhere else. So they don't finish where they started, but so it's not necessarily as bad as it sounds. And a lot of them start off not expecting to finish in that amount of time. They're going to go part time, they're working or whatever. So but it still seems high, right? I mean, we don't want people out there running around with student loan debt that don't have the degree that's supposed to help them pay for that, right? I mean, that's the hardest kind of situation to be in with respect to higher ed. I did some, I accrued a bunch of debt, and now I don't have my degree. So we don't want that. But at the same time, I think some of the drumbeat, it gets a little loud, and we get focused on some kind of they're kind of exotic examples, I guess. And where we find something that's wrong at this university, and that becomes something that's wrong with all of higher education, and it's usually not true. And there's always in the press. It's like sports, right? When we talk about college sports, people are always talking about Ohio State and Michigan and these kind of schools and what's going on there. And but the vast majority of collegiate athletics occurs at D2 and D1, D3. D3, there aren't even athletic scholarships, right? It's a totally different kind of thing that's going on. And what they're doing in athletics and the problems that they have at Ohio State, I mean, that's nothing like what goes on at Misericordia. And we have a terrific athletic program. About half of our students in an incoming class are on a varsity sports team. Okay. We have a big athletic program. We have more varsity teams than Ohio State. Believe that. Just check it out. So, we have 31, 32 sports now at Misericordia, the small school. It's an amazing, wonderful part of our student culture. Well, it's the same thing with other things in higher ed. We get focused on what's going on at Harvard and Princeton, well, we're just not playing the same game at all. I mean, we're out here trying to provide an education for hardscrabble kids from working class families that are really struggling to send their kids to college, right? And we're trying to make sure that they get an education that's going to allow them to have a good career and to have a good job on the other end and achieve the great things in life that they have the potential to do. That's very different than the research machine that's a Harvard or a Michigan or even a Notre Dame, And so, so I think sometimes, when bad things happen, and they're always going to, let's face it. I mean, there's, millions of students in higher education across this country, and they're not all going to behave. And there's, hundreds of thousands of faculty, and they're not all going to behave. And we need to be prepared to address that, but we don't want to sort of pathologize the entire industry over the behavior of a smaller number of people that that, of course we don't want that behavior, and uh, uh, we try to prevent that kind of thing from happening and address it when it does. But it nevertheless, it's there's a tendency for that to happen, right? And when someone wants to criticize an industry, that's a kind of a go-to, right? Is that they pick out bad apples and hold them up and treat them as if that's what the world
Right.
whole world is doing. So.
Yeah. Yeah. There must be so much, as a college president, there must be so much on your mind. Is there something that keeps you up at night about higher education? Is there something that nags at the back of your brain about looking out at higher education?
Yeah, well, I don't know if things keep me up at night, but uh, I like sleeping. It's good. But the but yeah, what are the worries as we look across the industry? And I do think that I do worry about this exact topic that you brought up, which is driven by the demographic thing. It really is. And we have to figure out new markets, and we have to figure out new products, if you will, that we can deliver to people that wouldn't have consumed higher education in the traditional way. It's, the traditional 18 to 22-year-old student pursuing a bachelor's degree. That's fantastic. That's our bread and butter. That's a core of what we do here. But there's other things that we need to do too. And we need to reach people who have some college credit and never got their degree. We need to do credentials for people that they don't need a college degree for the thing that they want to do next in their career. We need to provide more of that. We need to look for new markets. We need to look for underserved markets, and the most underserved market in the U.S. right now is Hispanic families. And so we need to find ways to be friendlier and more welcoming to Hispanic families if we want to be successful in dealing with the enrollment crunch that's coming. We need to get out to international students more and get them here. I was so interested you were from Zimbabwe, because we have been talking about Zimbabwe and Zambia as targets for bringing students to Misericordia. And but
Let's
that's
go.
something, and not just go to the same place. Everybody's going to China now. Let's go to China. But there's students all over the world that could benefit from coming to Misericordia or to a school like Misericordia. And so we need to find ways of making those markets work as well, and bringing those students into us. And a school like this that has a strong emphasis on belonging and on sort of community inclusion, it's a great place for international students to land. We have a student here from India right now who has just come here and thrived. I mean, he's incredible. I, I'm going to guess he's going to be the valedictorian of his class. He's just been elected the president of the student body. He's had incredible internships every summer. I mean, he's really changed his life and really taken advantage of what an opportunity like a Misericordia provides. And we can do that for more students. But we just have to, work on those mechanisms more to bring those students in touch with this kind of experience. So,
Yeah.
that enrollment thing,
Go ahead.
it's going to be hanging over our head for another decade. It just is. And
Okay.
maybe longer, and it's going to continue to provide challenges because it tempts people to do things that are not mission centric and that are, short-term fixes for a financial hole that they're facing, and they're not winners in the end. We have a school nearby that brought in a whole bunch of, they cooked up a deal and brought in a whole bunch of international students from one country. I'm not going to say too much about it, but, and they only lasted a year. So, okay, they plugged the
Yeah.
hole for 1 year, and then the next year they've got a bigger hole in a sense, because they were counting on coming back and they didn't come back. So those kind of short-term temptations that come in a financially stressful time can be really damaging, not only to the individual school, but to the industry itself over time. And we have to be really careful about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you had talked about being able to deliver what students are looking for, and basically, in short, right, like change is always going to be the constant for you. Keep evolving. We had seen recently that you actually had launched a new major, Bachelor of Science in AI, and then you also had this transfer pathway with
Yep.
a
Mhm.
local institution.
Yep.
It seems like this is kind of some of the, some of these new products, some of these new partnerships that are probably driving some of this. But just would love to hear kind of
Yeah.
your perspective, and also how maybe that starts to lay the foundation for what you do over the next 5 years, or
Yeah.
even longer.
Oh, you gotta have an innovation mindset in this game right now because the world's changing very rapidly, and you've gotta keep up. If you're putting up one new program every 3 or 4 years, you're not even in the game, okay? We have put up, I think, 19 new programs since I've been at this university now. Okay. New majors mostly, but also new certificate programs and things like that. AI is the most recent. But we put up a supply chain program. We put up, oh God, this a long list? Finance. We stripped out marketing and management to be their own majors. We've had a big emphasis on growing the business school right now. We have a bunch of new certificate programs in teacher ed and in the health sciences, and the list goes on. List goes on. I don't need to go over all of them. You mentioned the transfer pathway, and that's a way of getting to these students who get an associate's degree. And we have a very high quality community college in this area. They do a terrific job, really, really excellent. And they're our biggest source of transfers. But there's a lot of students that get the associate's degree from there that don't go on and get the bachelor's. And so we want to encourage more of that. And so we set up a deal to make sure that they're not losing any credits when they come to us. And so it's a very smooth pathway, and we're call it accelerate your degree. But they can be assured they're going to come to Misericordia and be able to just launch into the next set of things that they need to take without having to worry about general education requirements that might stop them up at other places or might have stopped them up here in the past. But that's washed away by this new deal. And so that's a great, great kind of thing. So there's a lot of things like that, but you always got to be working on the next one, and we're going to be trying to diversify more of our academic portfolio in the next couple of years with some new stuff in the graduate space and some stuff in the 2 year and less space, where we think that there's a market that's not being fulfilled. But you got you got to keep moving, or you're gonna be the shark that dies, right? You got to keep going, and because everything's always changing, and you just can't be complacent in the world that we're in right now. So that's been a big
Yeah.
part of the success of our enrollment, is that we have been able to offer these new programs that are attractive, and they're all studied. You can't just willy nilly go out and do this. You've got to figure out, are there students who want it? Are there jobs for them when they get out? And is somebody else doing it nearby that you're going to cannibalize, or you're going to cannibalize each other? If the answers to those questions aren't the right ones, you shouldn't go there. And so we have an incubator process that does all this kind of market study and everything before we put up a new program. And that's why I can say every single one that we put up since I've been here has been successful, and it's enrolling students, because we studied it before we did it. And so you got to make smart choices too.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like you've built a process for you to be able to be innovative, and to make those decisions in a faster manner, which is honestly faster than what we're used to with most leaders in higher education.
That's
They
right.
the culture of decision making and is much longer
Yeah.
than other industries. So it sounds like you actually have taken an innovative mindset to not only quicken that process, but in a way that works and does it right for you all.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's true. Higher education is built to be deliberative, right? Not to be um, a fast pivoting. And so,
yeah,
you've got to find ways to work with that because it's part of the DNA of higher ed too. But yeah, you've got to find ways to accelerate things. And the idea with the incubator was really to produce permanent innovation, right? That was the idea, that we're always going to have a mechanism that's looking for new things and assessing them and helping get them up and running. And that incubator function is gonna it has a churn to it. And so when it gets done with one or two or three, it's ready, it's already into the next one, right? And so it's always producing that kind of innovation cycle. And you can kind of slow it down or speed it up as need be as you're going through. And we were kind of on a breakneck pace for the first couple of years because we really wanted to get the programs going. But we've got so many up now and they're working and they're maturing that we turned it back a little bit. We're still producing new programs, but then if we get to a point, and we probably will in this next year, for because of a new kind of chapter that we're hoping to start, we'll be turning that up again some, and we'll be able to make that cycle go faster again. But it's all there. It's just adjusting it instead of starting from scratch every time, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, great information. I before we get to our last quick fire section, just want to ask you one last question around this concept of this thick. You've mentioned thick experience of community. How important is this thick experience of community and belonging, not only for Misericordia, but for the industry to hone in on, rather than this short term, we call it factory thinking that we were talking about earlier?
Yeah. Oh, well, it's essential. Okay. And you know this from going around and talking to people, right? And as we are in this increasingly uh almost anomic world for various reasons, ranging from what social media is doing to us, echo chambers, and the way people are thinking about what they should be doing in life and things like that. Whatever it is that's producing that, it's essential to for us to counteract that, right? And there's a hunger to connect, and that's why we decided, we're coming off of COVID, right? Which was an incredibly disconnecting experience for people, right? You're sitting at home alone all the time. And if you're lucky, you have a happy hour with your friends on Zoom. It was wild, just a crazy existence we had there for a while. And we're coming off of that. And, in our senses, people want to come back to campus. They want it more than ever. They want that college experience, how they perceive, what college ought to be like. And I think COVID in a sense revealed that we need to do more of that. Right. And it exposed a desire among people to connect. And when they do, don't they feel better? Don't they feel like, life is worth living more, when they have that connection with other people? And so this is not in any way, shape, or form just about Misericordia, and going back to my experience I described as an undergraduate at Ohio State, when I wasn't connected, it was awful, and I could tell you stories about what I went through that year. And then when I got connected, it was fantastic, right? And so, I mean, and there are just so many, there are, millions and millions of examples. They're not anecdotes. They're the stories of people's lives and of just about everyone. Now, there's some people who that's not important to them, and that's okay. That's okay. But for a lot of us, and for most of us, it does matter. It does matter a lot. And you could, as a institution, as a university institution, anything that you can do to produce a little more of that, it tends to build on itself. And so, it's not always, oh, I have to build this sense of community and belongingness for 30,000 people. Well, no, you start by building it for 100, and that grows, and once that community is operating, it's self-perpetuating, and then you can go on to the next one. One thing we've found here is that the sports teams are incredible connectors, right? Because here you're in this intense experience with a group of people. You come early to start your sport and start practice and stuff. And so you have this immediate kind of natural way to connect with people. And those belongingness subgroups, those sports teams, I mean, they are powerful at holding on to our students and helping them in lots of different ways, particularly when you have a good leader, a good coach. And we have coaches here who really know what they're doing. They know that it's great to win games, but they're really here to develop students. They know that that's their primary role. When you have that in that kind of a community, that takes off and it perpetuates itself. And then those students see other ways that they want to connect across campus. And so there is a virtuous cycle to this kind of stuff if you can get it rolling, and you don't have to think of it all as a huge mountain that you got to climb. You just got to get up to the first couple steps there, and then the thing starts to grow.
Yeah, fantastic. We're gonna rattle off just a couple quick fire
Okay.
questions to you. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ready? Okay, here we go. First one here.
Sorry.
When you reflect on legacy, what is the legacy that you hope to leave in higher education?
Well, I think we all want to matter, and we all want to look back and say we did something that made other people's lives better, which is completely in line with the mission of service that this place has. Now, it's one of the reasons I've felt so comfortable here, and I've enjoyed being here because it's who I want to be as an educator. And so, the idea that I have been of service to these students and to the faculty and staff who work here in some way that's made their life better. That's what I want. That's the legacy that I think a lot of people want. Yeah. I try to keep it
Awesome.
short. What's that? That's
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
our
It was
answer.
good. It was good. It was good. It was good. Okay, on to the next one. If all of higher ed, all of the higher ed industry was to stop right now, and they all went quiet and they all listened to you, what would you say in one statement to them?
Perhaps I would say, go look at your institutional mission and ask yourself, how can I do this better? Let the mission be the font of your ideas and your action plans. Instead of it being something that's over there, it's an identity or something. It's something you use to check to make sure that you're not doing something wrong. Let it be the source of the work and the ideas that you do.
Love it.
How's that?
That's very good.
Quotable.
Very good. Yeah, that is quotable. Did you know we were going to ask that? No, I can't.
No.
Yeah. Linky, I'm going to go off script. Dan, normally these questions we ask the same questions to everyone, but there's one question I'm going to ask you that's different.
Okay.
What does community realized mean to you?
Community realized for us, really, it means that people here have that sense of belonging, and that excuse me, that they know that this is a home for them, a real home, and they have a feeling for that. We have students here who they go back for break and things, and they can't wait to get back here. And that is powerful to me when I hear that. This is something that's going to be a touchstone for them for the rest of their lives, and they are going to stay attached to the people that they met here and that they interacted with for the rest of their lives. And we're living that every single day. Now, I'm not claiming we're perfect or that everybody loves being here, but that's what we aim for. And I think there's tons of evidence that we are making it happen. And it really comes down to a feeling of comfort and support that people have. That's what you get from a real community, right? Comfort and support, and challenges too. I don't forget that. The best communities that you're in are ones that push you to do something new, better, and to think differently and to understand the world in different ways. And so you put all that together. I mean, what a powerful experience, and what a powerful legacy to have been part of something like that for somebody else's life.
Awesome. All right, two last ones. This one is you've already mentioned it, but you took the assessment we designed for leaders just to start the conversation on what it looks like to build community. How did you find it? Quick thoughts. How did you find that assessment?
It was interesting, and I think there was a lot of good factors in there that contribute to a positive environment and a good functioning leadership team and so forth. But yeah, I thought you identified very appropriately things not only that indicate a positive culture, but challenge people to think about their culture and how could they get a little better on that particular aspect. So,
Cool. Okay, closing question, and then we'll call it. To the topic that we've been speaking about today, community and belonging and the work that needs to be done. Who is or are other leaders or a leader that you admire in higher education who you think is doing great work, and that maybe we should even have this similar type of conversation with?
it's a good question. I mean, there are many people doing this kind of work at small schools, tends to be more of the calling card of smaller schools. I would say Catholic schools, and I would say Mercy schools. There's 17 Mercy colleges in the United States, and this kind of stuff is absolutely front and center to the identity of the Mercy colleges. The Jesuit ones too. Maybe the bigger ones that are more research oriented and stuff wouldn't be as closely connected with this, but I worked at Marquette, a Jesuit school, and I think there's a great sense of wanting to build community and mission at Jesuit schools as well. So I think those are some categories where you might look. But I'll tell you, the guy that guides me the most, and he's a retired president, so he's not currently active, but it's Tom Flynn, who is the president of Alvernia College here in Pennsylvania, and he is an absolute thought leader on this kind of stuff. And Tom is currently doing sort of professional development for presidents through the Association for Catholic Colleges and Universities. And he just does a tremendous job. He was my executive coach my first year as a president. And he really helped me not only develop some of this thinking more, but helped me learn how to articulate it in ways that resonated with the people around me so I could motivate more engagement with that kind of thinking. So, and someone, and Alvernia is a school that's similar in many ways to Misericordia. It's not a Mercy school, but it is a Catholic school. And I think you'll find many tones from him. And he could speak sort of more broadly from working with presidents all over the country about what's going on in higher education and how these kind of important markers of what a good education is are thriving and not in various places and what the challenges are. He'd be a fantastic interviewee for you. So,
okay, Tom Flynn, we're coming for Tom. Yeah. All right. Well, Dan, that's it, man. Thank you.
Happy to have this conversation with you. You're doing great work. I'm just so impressed that you've come to this and that you're really pushing it out there.